The full moon in Aquarius on August 9th will bring a cathartic release of built up tension and pressure because this is a full moon illuminating one of the most dramatic astrological periods of the year. This is due to it being a full moon in Aquarius, the airy home of Saturn, with Saturn retrograde in Aries, very close to Neptune in Aries, and Saturn and Neptune receiving a fierce opposition from Mars in Libra. This opposition between Mars and Libra with Saturn and Neptune in Aries is a real pressure cooker and a configuration that, depending upon your circumstances, is going to make you need to face certain choices of how to deal with this pressure cooker energy. In some cases, you may realize places where you really need to let things go, rest, focus on restoration, recuperation, allow the tension of whatever challenges or adversities you are facing to work themselves out and focus on your own health and well being instead of pushing yourself up against a brick wall. Mars is a planet of action and bold initiative, swift movement, and it is coming up against the constraints, the delays, the obstacles, also the ponderousness, the thoughtfulness of Saturn. This can feel like being inflamed with the fiery force and willpower of Mars to take action and fight through the resistance we are facing. But we need to bear in mind whatever the types of Saturn obstacles or challenges or delays we are facing, because we don't want to just rush headlong into a brick wall when there is no progress really to be made and we're just going to exhaust ourselves. The Mars Saturn opposition can feel like being drained, like being exhausted. But in certain circumstances, you may realize a need for resilience, a need to use that resistance for extra motivation and push through and find the solution that's needed to whatever dilemma or situation you are facing. Because this is Mars in Libra, not only opposing Saturn, but Saturn and Neptune in Aries as they are coming to the end of their cycle, getting ready for this new Saturn and Neptune cycle that's going to come in next year. We are also on the world stage getting big news flashes and awareness of difficult crises going on around the world. There are certainly numerous humanitarian crises, such as widespread disease and starvation in places like Sudan and Gaza. As Mars and Saturn have been coming together in this opposition, Israel has announced intentions to take over Gaza. We have in the United States, the Trump administration launching tariffs that have uncertain economic consequences right now and is definitely going to cause disruptions and upheavals. And so there is this difficult tension going on in current events. And in our personal lives, we may also be facing our own version of some sort of personal crisis or dilemma. Now, if you're not in that situation, you may feel some inspiration, and this full moon in Aquarius could actually go with some great revelation and leaps of thought, because we are also at the same time having this very innovative air trine happening with Mars and Libra forming an air trine with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. This is really activating and inflaming the airy trine between Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini that we are just starting to get awareness for. In big current events, this will go with a great empowerment of urges and movements for freedom, for liberation, great leaps of innovative technological advances and inventions, but especially in terms of protest movements, movements of revolution and rebellion. We have seen this in the past when Pluto and Uranus come together, great advances and developments in feminism and civil rights in acts of civil disobedience on behalf of protesting the power structure or systems of oppression that might be operating at any given time. And Saturn Neptune time periods can also go with a great mobilization of popular unrest and insurrections and people really taking action to make change. But out of all of these complicated dynamics I'm describing, there are two factors in particular that do deserve our attention. And that is the fact that the full moon is happening in Aquarius, where Pluto is located in the early degrees of Aquarius, and the fact that at the time of the full moon in Aquarius, Mercury is in Leo, stationing direct and becoming visible. Mercury is in process of moving from being invisible and retrograde into becoming visible as a morning star and stationing direct a couple of days after the full moon in Aquarius. And when Mercury does station direct and does become visible, Mercury will be also forming a wide opposition with Pluto in Aquarius. And so this dynamic between stationing Mercury and Pluto in Aquarius deserves a lot of attention. We're going to need to bring extra mindfulness. This will be a time period where the invisible underpinnings of reality and our interpersonal dynamics will gain greater visibility. We can get a deeper awareness for the underlying depths of various dynamics that we have been relating with and dealing with in our life. Because we are talking about Pluto, this can also be a great illumination of whatever power dynamics we have been facing. And ideally, this can be a great inspiration of empowerment and finding ways to empower yourself, claim greater power and greater agency in whatever situation you are facing. And so, crucially, on August 8th, as the moon in Aquarius is waxing into exact fullness, Mars in Libra will form this exact opposition with Saturn. And as I said, it's not just Mars opposing Saturn, it's Mars opposing Saturn and Neptune. And so, the Saturn Neptune combination that goes with how much reality is dramatically changing and even further emboldened by this sextile, this dynamic sextile coming in between Pluto and Aquarius with Saturn and Neptune, and Uranus and Gemini with Saturn and Neptune, while Uranus is trine Pluto. And both of them are forming this flowing trine with Mars in Libra, as you can see on the chart here. And so, like I'm describing, this can actually be incredibly dynamically creative and innovative and revelatory. But if you are in difficult circumstances, this can feel like overwhelming tension. And so, if you are in a situation like that, you may just need to focus more on rest and restoration and seeking some relief from your difficulties. And because the full moon is in Aquarius, where Pluto is located, and Mercury is becoming visible and stationing direct in opposition to Pluto, I really feel like part of the way through this is that focus on how to find greater empowerment. For some of you, that might be taking care of yourself, resisting the need to overwork yourself and overly exhaust yourselves. For others of you, depending on what kind of challenge you're facing, you may not have that luxury and actually need to persevere and work through whatever the challenge is that's correlating with this tension. Because we have a full moon with the sun opposite the moon, because we have Mars and Libra opposite Saturn and Neptune, because we have Mercury opposite Pluto, all of these oppositions often can show up in relational dynamics at times or in some sort of external issue that we are facing. And so sometimes while we do need to fight through that or persevere through that, other times we need to patiently hold the tension of that mystery and allow for a solution to emerge. We may not totally understand what that is at this time, But this full moon in Aquarius is in a place where we may receive a revelation that helps us work through these different tensions. The other key point is that there is another aspect forming at the same time, and that is a conjunction between Venus and Jupiter that is forming and will take effect a few days after the full moon. But when the full moon is illuminating the night on August 9th, Venus will be less than 3 degrees away from Jupiter in Cancer. And so this is a really strange combination where we have this very dynamic, very pressure building tension, but then at the same time, we have this very sweet, beautiful, artistic source of pleasure in Venus and Jupiter coming together. These are two planets that are all about life and fertility and devotion. And so, if you can make space to seek pleasure, to seek community, to seek gatherings of people that you really care about or who share your values, this can be a way to escape from the tension that's going on with the rest of the astrology. And you may realize that there's one area of your life where you are experiencing this beautiful Venus Jupiter combination of new life force and creativity. And in another section of your life, you are facing all of this tension. But if you go into a space to embrace the art and embrace the creativity and embrace the small pleasures of beauty, stopping to smell the roses, this can be a way to find some of the beauty that can help you get through whatever tensions and challenges are coming with the rest of the astrology, especially this opposition between Mars with Saturn and Neptune. One of the most fascinating aspects of this full moon to me is that it is happening in the second decan of Aquarius. This is the face of Mercury, which is amazing because of how powerful Mercury is right now, stationing, becoming visible, facing in opposition with Pluto. And the tarot card, the Six of Swords, in the Rider-Waite image here, illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith, is really a beautiful rendering of many of the attributes of the second decan of Aquarius. In the image, we find a ferryman rowing what appears to be a mother and child across a watery expanse from one shore until the other. And this is an incredible image that goes with so much of the astrology happening right now, especially in the way that we not only have Mars activating the Saturn Neptune combination, but especially because of how Mercury is stationing in opposition to Pluto. This ferryman is creating a refuge for this mother and child in this in between place, journeying from one shore to the other, not unlike bridging or building networks or connections between the known and the unknown, between the pragmatic and the innovative. The ferryman, like Mercury, can make home on the road, or in this case, in the ferry, in between. There is a sovereignty that the ferryman possesses in this in between realm. Austin Coppock, in his book 36 Faces, described the power of this decan as bringing the ability to touch multiple shores, but be beholden to none, having this independence between multiple worlds, being able to mediate commerce between heaven and earth, between the known and the unknown, to make connections between the consensus and the countercultural. And so, this incredible ability that we find in the second decan of Aquarius to connect these realms of the known and the unknown is something that we may discover under the full illumination of this full moon in Aquarius. With Mercury stationing, opposing Pluto, it's going to be dredging up deeper issues. It's going to be making invisible dynamics and realities visible. So listen and pay attention because there could be great insights and revelations received under the light of this Aquarius full moon. Because the full moon is in the face of Mercury, as well as the fact that Mercury is a triplicity lord of Aquarius, since Aquarius is an air sign, there is a lot of extreme potency to be found in the fact that this full moon is taking place at the same time Mercury is stationing direct. Mercury will officially station direct on August 11th, but is in all intents and purposes stationing under the light of this full moon. Mercury's been retrograde since July 18th. And after Mercury does station direct, Mercury will slowly begin picking up speed this week until next week on August 19th. Mercury will eventually reach maximum elongation and start moving faster, which will be a time when we'll be able to integrate more of the changes that have come up for us during this Mercury retrograde period. But right now, as we come into this full moon in Aquarius, pay attention to the messages you're receiving. Pay attention to the new ideas that are percolating. There could be very powerful insights revealed to you with this full moon. What's additionally powerful when Mercury does station direct on August 11th is that it is forming this opposition with Pluto, as well as a wide sextile with Uranus in Gemini, as well as a flowing trine with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. This configuration mirrors the recent new moon in Leo that came in at the end of July, as well as this extremely powerful configuration that will be coming in next July in 2026 when Jupiter comes into Leo, and Jupiter will be where Mercury is stationing direct right now, and Jupiter will be opposing Pluto, forming a fiery trine with Neptune and a sextile with Uranus. And we will get this incredibly potent configuration. And in fact, the full moon in Aquarius next year at the end of July will be illuminating this incredible, powerful configuration that is going to go with so much change. This is a real vortex of possibility and potential. I've talked about this configuration in the past being like a cauldron holding the solutio alchemical process we've been going through with Saturn and Neptune coming to the end of their cycle in Pisces as well as in Aries like they are right now. In that solutio alchemical phase, things dissolve down to that prima materia, which allows for transformation and transmutation. As things change and dissolve, oftentimes a solution ultimately emerges. Whatever the case may be, this configuration that will be coming into effect next year, and which is mirrored right now with some of the dynamics happening under the light of this Aquarius full moon, it brings a potential to bring in dramatic changes into your life. And so, whatever ideas you're getting right now about the ways that you do want to change your life, think about how you can make plans for how to develop that and take the small steps you can take right now to get yourself there next year when this configuration does come in. And then not long after Mercury stations direct on August 12th or August 11th, depending upon your time zone, Venus and Jupiter will come together in their conjunction at about 14 degrees of Cancer. Venus and Jupiter uniting in Cancer really is a beautiful combination because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer and Venus loves being in water signs as she is one of the rulers of the water triplicity who gets great support from being in a water sign. But right now, as we come into this full moon and all of the tension that we're facing with Mars setting off Saturn and Neptune with that opposition, this combination is a real sign of hope and restoration and recovery that can come after we deal with whatever challenges we are facing right now. This is also an aspect to really take advantage of in terms of leaning into Venus and Jupiter, leaning into creating community, creating gatherings with those you care about or love, engaging in some intentional creative or artistic processes, seeking pleasure through art or going out to a fun event or music, stepping back from whatever tension you might be facing with Mars and Saturn to take in and receive whatever beauty and pleasure is available to you. And so, what I'm going to do now is go through a short delineation about this full moon in Aquarius and the complex astrological dynamics happening for each sign of the zodiac. You may find this especially relevant for your ascendant or rising sign, but it also may be relevant for you according to your sun sign or your moon sign. Aquarius. Aquarius, I'm starting with you because this full moon in Aquarius is all about you. This full moon is in your sign and it is illuminating your relationship with Pluto in Aquarius. You've probably already been going through great change. Some of you have maybe already experienced quite a bit of transformation, transmutation of various elements in your life. And there's probably much more change on the way. There's something profound and deep ready to dredge up and come to the surface. And this full moon in Aquarius is going to be illuminating that for you. It might lead you to sudden insights about how to change your life or really unexpected directions that you might want to pursue. It's also really going to be illuminating whatever has been going on for you with this Mercury retrograde period in Leo we've been dealing with for the past few weeks. Full moons are always really relational. And so, with this full moon in your first house and seventh house, with Mercury stationing direct also in your seventh house, there's also probably a lot of profound realizations going on right now for you about relationships, relational dynamics. This could have to do with certain personal friendships or romantic relationships or business partnerships or just relational patterns and dynamics in general that you've been working through and dealing with. And there also could be some exciting new opportunities, new collaborations, new relationships emerging in your life that you're gaining awareness for it. Now, at the same time, there is the Mars and Libra opposition with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And the tension here would be coming in through your ninth house and your third house. In some ways, this could have something to do with other cultures, foreign countries, and the local environment or the familiar. The unfamiliar versus the familiar, the known and the unknown, deeper philosophical questions and even crises, challenging the way you are thinking and communicating and using your mind. But I do think there is at the same time great potential for creative innovation and new unexpected sources of inspiration because of Mars, Uranus, and Pluto forming this air trine in the ninth, first, and the fifth house of creativity. That Uranus placement that you're adjusting to here in your fifth could get a real injection of inspiration. And you might be getting a sense here of the ways in which there might be some really creative innovations that you start working with. Now, because you have the Venus and Jupiter conjunction in your sixth house, you are one of the signs where if this tension that I'm describing is really overwhelming for you, you might want to really lean into the rest and the recovery and really focusing on your health and your body and nurturing yourself and really focusing in on the pleasure and the restoration that can be found with Venus and Jupiter. Whatever the case might be, I hope you get some very powerful revelations and new creative ideas with this full moon in your sign. Pisces. Pisces, this full moon in Aquarius is in your 12th house with Pluto and Aquarius also located there, with the sun in Leo and Mercury stationing direct in your sixth house. And so this is in houses that have a lot to do with your health as well as your mental health. And so it does make me think about making sure you are really putting in the practices that are going to help you with your mental health as well as your bodily health. So anything you can do to calm your nerves, not push yourself too excessively hard. There might be some really important insights coming up about different practices and routines and habits, whether that's new exercise routines or new dietary routines that have come in with this Mercury in retrograde process that you've been in that is now coming to an end with Mercury stationing direct. With the full moon in Aquarius in your 12th, there also might be a sense of redreaming your life, getting out away from people and away from the busyness to really take in some deep insights about what is changing in your life. You are a sign that had a lot going on earlier in this year, and there will be more coming your way because Saturn and Neptune will be coming back to your sign later this year. And so this full moon looks to be one that is really bringing up the deeper, invisible dimensions, the hidden realities to really take stock of and find out how to make some adjustments to in healthier ways for yourself. Because Mars in Libra is in your eighth house, this could be anxiety provoking. And so that's another reason to really do what you can do to calm nerves and ground. If you've been having any sort of financial uncertainty or challenges related to this early experience of adjusting to Saturn and Neptune being in Aries in your second house, this is also likely a full moon that's bringing in some illumination about what needs your attention there, whatever that might be given your circumstance. But there is one aspect about this full moon that I especially love for you, and that is the combination of Venus and Jupiter coming together in your fifth house of pleasure and creativity. And so Venus and Jupiter coming together is truly something for you to lean into and really make some space for pleasure, for creative exploration in this week following the full moon as Venus and Jupiter are together. It can be a way to get out of the tensions of your life. And by engaging in pleasurable activities and artistic and creative processes, you also might gain some much deeper insights about the way your life is changing and the different adjustments that you're going to be needing to make. Whatever the case might be, I hope this full moon in Aquarius can bring in some exciting new creative directions for you to be developing. Aries, this full moon in Aquarius is in your 11th house with Pluto in Aquarius, also in your 11th house with the sun in Leo and Mercury stationing direct in your 5th house. This looks to be a very dynamic, very creative full moon for you, but there definitely is some real strong relational tension that you may be working out because you have been adjusting to Saturn and Neptune being in your sign, which is truly a lot. It's been a big adjustment for all of us to deal with, but because they are taking shape in your sign, there's something profound about who you are in the world that's been changing. And now Mars is in Libra, inflaming this relational place for you. And so there might be all sorts of relational dynamics and challenges coming up that are bringing all sorts of awarenesses to you. This might have to do even about how you may project different issues that are your own issue to take care of, into your relationships. It might have to do with some of these issues of power and empowerment related to Pluto that I was talking about earlier in the video that also are coming up here for you to work through. At the same time, there really can be something creative and a new sense of aspiration to really pursue with your work and your creative direction due to the full moon, Mercury retrograde, and Pluto activating this fifth house and the 11th house. If you've been engaged in artistic and creative processes over the course of this Mercury retrograde in Leo, there's hopefully a great illumination and insight into that here, and as well as insight into how the direction and of your life and the aspirations you have for your work are really changing with Pluto being in Aquarius. Now, for you, the Venus Jupiter combination is happening in your fourth house. And so, while this might be a time of great external activity as well as challenges and tensions, there's something very sweet and fertile and creative and poetic and pleasurable for you to receive in your place of home or within your inner life. And so there might be something about withdrawing from the busyness of the external world to really find a source of pleasure in your own home space away from that external tension. And that might be a very powerful way to get through whatever tensions you are experiencing with this Aquarius full moon. You are in a process of really incredible change with Saturn and Neptune being in your sign. And so, however, you have been dealing with that and adjusting to that, I hope this full moon in Aquarius brings you some very powerful insights to help you with the changes underway. Taurus, this full moon in Aquarius is up in your 10th house along with Pluto, with the Sun in Leo and Mercury retrograde stationing direct in your fourth house. This is a full moon that is lighting up the tension between action and rest, between your role in the world and your role in your family or at home, the public facing external face of yourself and that sense of inner life. All of us are going through really incredible change with all of these great astrological dynamics that are underway right now. But you really have something being illuminated, being transformed and changed about your role in the world, who you want to be, what you want to do with your work in the world. And so there probably will be some big insights coming in here. As long with Mercury retrograde stationing direct opposing Pluto, really bringing in some deep unconscious awareness. This is really for you, especially a full moon that could make more of that unconscious conscious, more of that invisible reality visible, and these deep insights about different patterns playing out right now, more awareness being brought there and insight gained. The Mars in Libra tension with Saturn and Neptune are playing out in your sixth house and your 12th house. And so this really, to me, puts a premium on your health and your mental health, and really being careful about becoming anxiety provoked, getting too much fear or mental anxieties getting unleashed with Mars and Libra in this air sign, and the way that could affect your mental health with Saturn and Neptune and Aries in your 12th. Now, as long as you are taking care of that and really putting in some into place some nice practices to help you negotiate whatever that might be, this also could be overall a very liberating type of insight and awareness gained here at this full moon for your career trajectory, for what you're doing with your work, how you are making money, how you are making your livelihood in the world, and whether or not you are really feeling fulfilled by that. And if there is some other way of making money or making your way in the world with your vocation that is really starting to call your attention, really listen in for any insights that you gain with that. Now, for you, the Venus Jupiter combination is happening in your third house. Now, for you, the Venus Jupiter combination is happening in your third house. For some of you, this could relate to siblings or old familiar friends who can be a real source of sweetness and support for you right now. It also could be something about the local environment and the local community that you're part of. This also might, though, have to do simply with communication, with writing, with really engaging artistic practices, creative practices, doing some journaling, writing some poetry, creating art, doing some divination at home for guidance, really engaging in art and pleasurable creative activities with your mind to really engage that part of yourself so you don't give into any types of fears or anxiety about any types of tensions that you are facing. Whatever the case might be, this is a big full moon for checking in with your path in the world. And so I hope you receive some very powerful insights. Gemini, this full moon in Aquarius is in your ninth house with Pluto in Aquarius, also in your ninth house, the Sun in Leo, and Mercury stationing direct in Leo in your third house. There's a lot of creative potential available with this full moon because you, Gemini, are still adjusting to the presence of Uranus in your sign. Mars in Libra is bringing some tension through these fifth house topics that can go with pleasure or children or creativity. But there's also a real inflaming of martial heat being brought to this place of creativity that could combine with Pluto and the full moon in the ninth and Uranus in Gemini in your first into some real brilliant intellectual, creative, artistic insights and innovations and real revelations about how you are already feeling your life stirred up and changed by the presence of Uranus and real momentum to take greater action to make changes and make some leaps of advancements with whatever it is that you've been working on. Now, there is, of course, this Mars opposition between Mars and Libra with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And so, for those of you that are creative or have an artistic audience, there might be some sort of tension between what you're creating and your audience or your own personal creative path and various groups or associations that you're part of. I think in the end, though, it most likely has to do with just general creative tensions that you are working through and coming to terms with the way you are already feeling your life changed by all the great changes going on in the world, how that's feeding into who you want to be and your aspirations for your work, the types of community and friends that you really want to be part of, the alliances you really want to be forming, and then whatever tensions are going on with this. And this, whatever tensions might be going on there, might also be revealing to you some really deep insights about your own personal process of change. Now, for you, the Venus Jupiter conjunction is taking place in your second house of finances and attitudes about finances and possessions. So, of course, there is a warning here not to go to great excess of spending too much money on sources of pleasure, but there could be something that is just about spending some at least small amount of money in the pursuit of pleasure, or perhaps most importantly of all, focusing in on how to resource yourself, restore your energy. You've been a sign that has had a lot going on and a lot impacting you all year. And so this might be a time of rest and restoration, especially. Of course, instead of spending money, you might be coming up with all sorts of innovative new ways of making money. And so, if you did experience financial challenges with Mars retrograde in Cancer earlier in the year, hopefully you are now experiencing some gains or some ideas about how to replenish your finances. All in all, though, with this full moon in Aquarius in your ninth house and your extreme mental abilities, I do think this is a full moon that could be extremely revelatory with all sorts of exciting new ideas. And so I hope you do experience an illumination of powerful insights and ideas for you to continue to further develop with your work in the year ahead. Cancer, this full moon in Aquarius is in your eighth house, with Pluto and Aquarius also in your eighth house, and the Sun in Leo and Mercury retrograde stationing direct in your second house. This is a lunation that is activating financial houses, houses that have to do with our own resources, as well as our giving and receiving and our dynamics with others that we might be in collaboration with or in partnership with, whether we have shared resources with them in one way or another. Perhaps there's been some sort of financial review or ways that you've been needing to look at monetary habits or spending habits related to this Mercury retrograde in Leo process. And so there might be some real insights there. But it also really, to me, makes me think about that deeper dimension of the psyche and making the unconscious conscious, more of that invisible reality becoming visible and made awareness because of that eighth house, that deep place of psyche being illuminated here. Now, there is great tension in some way going on with your work in the world and however that intersects with your inner life or your place of home. Mars in Libra is in the fourth, opposing Saturn and Neptune in Aries in your 10th. You've had some kind of big change going on with who you want to be, the work you're doing in the world, and there is a powerful tension coming up right now to work that out in one way or another. And that source of tension could be coming from your inner life. It could relate to some old family patterns. Perhaps it relates to even things involving your ancestors or ancestral patterns, or a tension about the type of home you want to have and that inner home, inner life versus the external work. For you, though, the real source of pleasure and life force to help you through this tension is going to be found in the Venus and Jupiter conjunction. Venus and Jupiter are coming together in your sign in the week following the Aquarius full moon. And so this is a time to really seek community, seek friends, seek pleasure, seek beauty and joy and artistry, and really find the sources of joy and beauty and pleasure in your daily life and really lean into that. It's going to be a way to work through the tension, and there could be great new ideas and sources of life and restoration that are made available to you. And so, whatever that case might be, I hope this full moon in Aquarius can be incredibly enlivening for your creativity and your sense of purpose in the world. Leo, this full moon in Aquarius is in your seventh house, with Pluto in Aquarius also in your seventh, with the Sun in Leo and Mercury stationing direct in your sign. You, like the sign of Aquarius, have great relational tension being released with this full moon because it is activating your first house and your seventh house. And you've likely been going through some great process of interchange, transformation, transmutation with this Mercury retrograde in recent weeks. And there's also been something about change and transformation being readily made available to you with Pluto in Aquarius being in your seventh house. So, whatever relational dynamics you've been involved with others, whatever power dynamics you've been facing with others, something is being illuminated there. And hopefully, it can coincide with you claiming greater agency and empowerment in your life. Whatever the case might be, there's going to be all sorts of hidden dynamics being illuminated that are involved in your relationships. You might be even made aware of how you are projecting certain issues on others, as well as making insights into certain relationships that need less of your attention and involvement, and perhaps other relationships where you are really held and accepted and you realize, certain relationships are going to become more important for you in the times ahead. Now, for you, the opposition between Mars and Libra with Saturn and Neptune and Aries are happening in your third house and your ninth house. So these are liminal houses. They are also really mental houses of philosophy and communication and mental ideas. And so, whether you are actually involved in academic study in some way, or you've been involved in some sort of course of learning, there is something profound going on with your mind and new ideas taking shape, as well as some sort of tension being worked out there that's really becoming alive here at this lunation. And so, with Saturn and Neptune up in your ninth, there might be some very deep philosophical questions that you have been facing and some type of worldview that you've been holding that is under a state of flux and change. Perhaps the Mars in Libra in your third is really pushing you in some way in the local environment, or perhaps it is through using your words or communication in some way. It does make me think, though, that something very alive relationally in community with others could come alive for you with this full moon, especially if there are movements of change, movements of liberation that you want to get involved with. Uranus is in Gemini in your 11th. And so that combination of Uranus being in your 11th with Mars and Libra in your third and Pluto in Aquarius and the full moon in the 7th could really be giving you some insights about the way you want to become part of change in the world. And since you are a Leo, there might even be some leadership roles you want to take as part of that, or just ways that you realize you want to use that fiery force of willpower that you possess to make change in the world. Now, the Venus Jupiter conjunction at the same time is in a very different part of your chart. You have Venus and Jupiter coming together in your 12th house. So, this really makes me think, if there is too much tension, excitement, and stress going on in your world, it's going to be really helpful to get away from it. Go on some sort of personal retreat. Make space in your own home for some private time. Get out into the woods on a hike, or get away from the busyness. Create some sort of private space of meditation or artistic pursuits, some sort of private space to pursue pleasure and creativity. And by getting away from all the tension and going into this more liminal place of artistic process, that might be a real source of restoration and insight for you. Whatever the case might be, I hope you do experience some very helpful insights with this powerful full moon in Aquarius. Virgo, this full moon in Aquarius is in your sixth house with Pluto and Aquarius also there, and the Sun in Leo and Mercury stationing direct in Leo in your 12th house. You are another one of the signs that have this 12th house, 6th house axis really set off at this lunation. And because there is so much tension going on in the world with this aspect, it again makes me think for you to just make sure at a bottom line, just foundational level, you are really putting in some good practices to ground and calm your nerves, pay attention to mental anxieties, pay attention to any kind of fears going on, things that could be impacting your mental health in any sort of way. And hopefully, with Mercury stationing direct, you have some good insights into how to put some of those kinds of practices together to help you. Now, at the same time, I do think this full moon could bring some very major insights and revelations to you about your path in the world. You're still adjusting to Uranus being in Gemini in your 10th house. This is going to bring a big effect to you. And that Uranus and Gemini in your 10th is forming an Aries trine with Pluto and Aquarius in your 6th and Mars and Libra in your 2nd. And so there is a lot of fire and heat being brought through that Uranus transit of your 10th right now that's being activated with this full moon. And the combination of that with Venus and Jupiter coming together in your 11th might really be stoking the flames of your aspirations and ideals. And even if you've been frustrated and you've been dealing with tensions, there might be some real liberatory insight and revelation about the changes you want to make, about the more exciting, idealistic direction to pursue with your work. Now, for you, the tension between Mars and Libra with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, it could involve finances, resources, your own resources in relation to those that you are in partnership with or collaboration with, or who you have shared resources with. And so, if there is tension that's being worked out there, see if the stationing of Mercury direct can give you some real insights into how to navigate through whatever that challenge might be. Now, I do really love the Venus and Jupiter conjunction forming in your 11th house because this really points to community, friends, benefactors. Now, I do really love the Venus and Jupiter conjunction forming in your 11th because this does point to friends and alliances and community being a source of pleasure and restoration. Hopefully, you are in a place where you can be part of some community gatherings. But in any case, reach out to the friends and the alliances that you have in your life who really share that sense of soul and deep purpose, who really understand you, who really understand who you are and what you want to create with your life. They can be real sources of support for you at this time. And lean into those aspirations, lean into the type of creative direction that you want to pursue, even if it's not fully happening right now. Really take the time to envision that with this full moon. And hopefully, that combination of Uranus and Gemini up in your 10th with everything else will bring some real liberatory insight into some really helpful changes that you can make to put yourself on a more fulfilling path. Libra. Libra, this full moon in Aquarius is in your 5th house with Pluto in Aquarius, also in your 5th house, the Sun in Leo, and Mercury retrograde, stationing direct in Leo in your 11th house. This is a very dynamic full moon for you and hopefully can go with some very profound creative insights and realizations. However, at the same time, you are one of those signs that has incredible relational tension coming up. There's something going on with Mars in Libra in your sign, facing off with Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house, that is showing some sort of tension between yourself and other relationships or relational patterns. This could involve work relationships or any type of relationship. It doesn't have to be in the realm of personal friends or romantic relationships. It's really something about you and the other in all sorts of ways. And Mars is really coming in here with a lot of heat and a lot of action, really wanting to spur you to take action and really embolden your work in the world. So just watch any kind of tendencies where you're coming up against some type of constraint or some type of issue through relationships and make sure that you're not pushing too hard, pushing up against people too hard. Use those Libra mediation, diplomatic skills and awarenesses you have to make sure, on the one hand, you are empowering yourself and taking greater agency with yourself and your work, but also not overriding others because of that force of Mars, really wanting you to push through whatever kind of challenges you might be facing at all costs. I do think there's something profoundly creative here for you, though, with Mars and Libra in your 1st, Pluto and the full moon in your 5th, and Uranus and Gemini in your ninth. You're an extremely intelligent sign, and there could be all sorts of brilliant intellectual insights and revelations that you are receiving. I also want to draw your attention to Venus and Jupiter because you have Venus and Jupiter coming together in your 10th house. This could just go with some sort of breakthrough with your work or inspiration that you receive about a new type of work or more fulfilling direction for you to pursue. But this does speak to me about really seizing this Venus Jupiter conjunction happening right now to really deliberately, intentionally take action in pursuit of what is pleasurable to you, what is beautiful to you, what feels joyous. Make space, make intention to engage art, and engage beauty, and find joy in the world around you. And hopefully, there's going to be new life and new inspirational ideas about your work and the path ahead that are revealed to you with this full moon in Aquarius. It's in your fifth house. And so there might be all sorts of creative ideas brought up to you. Because Mercury is stationing direct and also opposing Pluto, and Mercury is up in the 11th house and Pluto's down in the fifth, there might also be some underlying dynamics revealed about your friend groups and different alliances or community groups you're part of. And so that's certainly something else that might be coming up for you. And so, again, it's speaking to this relational tension with you and others. And so it might be through groups and through community where you realize some insights about things that have been going on with yourself. And in the end, this can just bring deeper awareness, deeper self realizations to you. And hopefully, most of all, with Venus and Jupiter in your 10th, you are getting some kind of powerful inspiration about the new, more fulfilling creative direction to pursue in the times ahead. So I hope you do receive some powerful insights about that at this full moon in Aquarius. Scorpio, this full moon in Aquarius is in your fourth house with Pluto in Aquarius in your fourth house with the Sun in Leo and Mercury retrograde in Leo, stationing direct in your 10th house. You are another one of these signs that have the depths, the emotional depths of yourself being illuminated, and yet you also have something very profound going on with your work and your career in the world. This Mercury retrograde process in recent weeks has been asking you to look at your career path, to look at your vocation. And Saturn and Neptune and Aries are also making you look at your work habits, any places where you are exhausting yourself, any routines that need to come in, any adjustments that need to be made with your body or your diet. With Mars and Libra coming into the 12th and opposing Saturn and Neptune in the 6th, really watch any places where you have fears or anxieties coming in and really inflaming health issues. Make sure that you don't push yourself too hard with this full moon. You might be a sign that needs to try to relax more and really get some rest and recuperation. The full moon is in your fourth. So there's something about that deep, unconscious, incredible, deep realm of insight that you possess, Scorpio. And especially with Uranus and also in Gemini in the eighth, there's something about this deep psyche and the unconscious that's really alive for you here. With Mercury stationing direct, you might want to really especially pay attention to your dreams and that intuitive insight that you possess. There might be all sorts of insights and revelations coming to you there. Now, for you, the Venus and Jupiter conjunction forming this week is in your ninth house. Perhaps this has to do with travel plans. Perhaps this has to do with something you are studying, something involving other cultures, something involving higher mind. whatever ninth house types of explorations of pleasure and artistry and creativity that you can pursue, this could be a place to really receive some restoration and pleasure. So if you've really been grinding and really working yourself really hard, this could be a time to maybe read something really enjoyable, something that's going to really stimulate your mind, or do something else as far as just getting out for some travel, or get out of your daily routine. Something that is going to stimulate your mind, give yourself all these new creative ideas. I think there's something very powerful coming in here that's going to involve inner insight, that's going to end up leading into some very powerful, important shifts with your work in the world. And so I hope you do receive those insights with this full moon in Aquarius. Sagittarius. This full moon in Aquarius is in your third house with Pluto and Aquarius there, with the sun in Leo and Mercury stationing direct in Leo in your ninth house. So, like some of the other signs we've looked at, you have a really powerful third house, ninth house activation here that could go with all sorts of powerful intellectual, mental, intuitive insights and innovations. This could be a really powerful time for journaling or writing. Also, any type of divination system that you engage with and like to work with. This could be very powerful at this time to use divination as a way to get some insight on the path ahead. There's something very powerful going on for you involving your creativity and the audience for that creativity, as well as tensions between these things, or perhaps tensions between your own sense of creativity and really what you want to pursue versus the community or the alliances that you are part of. There's some sort of 11th house, fifth house tension being activated here at this time with Mars and Libra and Saturn and Neptune and Aries. But with Mars and Libra in the 11th, with Uranus and Gemini in the 7th, and Pluto and Aquarius in the 3rd, there's something very relationally dynamic going on here. And like the other fire signs, you might be especially inflamed to take action and get part of new movements, fighting for liberation and change, fighting against oppression, finding your way to be part of movements of change and finding your role within those movements of change. That is something that definitely might be very illuminated for you, and you might gain some insights into the types of causes or idealistic crusades or quests that you really want to lend your fiery Sagittarian nature towards. Now, for you, the Venus and Jupiter conjunction is happening in your 8th place. This is an idle place. This is a place of deep psyche. This is a place that might also have to do with shared resources, with partners or other people in your life. But like I've mentioned with some of the other signs, it also might be a signal to step away from the busyness of life and the tension that you're facing, to seek the pleasure and joy and beauty where it may be found. And that might be found in more of the still, quiet moments away from all the busyness and stress of the world. Whatever the case may be, Sagittarius, I really hope you get some powerful insights for yourself and the path ahead with this Aquarius full moon. Capricorn, this full moon in Aquarius is in your 2nd house with Pluto and Aquarius also there, with the sun in Leo and Mercury retrograde stationing direct in your 8th house. There is something for you here about finances, resources, how you resource yourself, how you are involved in exchanges of resources, giving and receiving with others. There is something being worked out here, some sort of powerful insight coming in here about this. At the same time, with Venus and Jupiter coming together in your seventh house, it looks like a time of improved relationships, improved support coming in. And so hopefully you've been working out how to resource yourself, how to delegate, how to not take on too much, how to receive more help from others, have more of your needs met through your relationships, through your shared resources and collaborations with others. These are definitely some things that could be really illuminated here for you, especially in terms of resourcing yourself and restoration. With Uranus in your sixth house, there might have already been, with this adjustment to having Uranus in your sixth house, you might already be becoming aware of different health issues that have been coming up to face and in some ways liberate yourself from if you've been working too hard, whatever the case might be. Now, with Mars and Libra up in your 10th, I bring this up because the danger here could be trying to push yourself too hard with your work when in fact you need to take more of a rest or restorative approach or put into effect some more helpful health routines, exercise routines, dietary routines, whatever it is. However, Uranus can help open up and release and liberate yourself from ways that being a Capricorn who really pushes yourself and works really hard in the way that might have been impacting your health, there could be some helpful insights brought in here. And while Mars and Libra up in your 10th is going to make you want to really push hard and work hard, and maybe you do need to, just make sure you don't push yourself too hard. There still is something deep, deep change going on for you in the home, in the unconscious, in the inner life with that Saturn Neptune combination down in your fourth. That is also going to really be calling your attention. But because Venus and Jupiter again are coming together in your seventh house, this can be a real time to gain support from friends and important relationships and loved ones, and let yourself reach out and receive that support you deserve from others. Whatever the case might be, I hope you get some very powerful insights at this full moon in Aquarius. If you'd like to talk about how all of this astrology is impacting you, my books are open for astrology consultations. I have some space open in September. I may still have a few slots left at the very end of August if you check my scheduler. I will put a link to my scheduler below so you can book an astrology consultation with me. I'll also put a link below to my Patreon community. I have an active Patreon community with 3 different tiers. On the lower tier, there is some extra content that I put on my Patreon, as well as discounts that you receive for working with me. Some of that extra content includes weekly videos that I make about the astrology for each week and what's going on with the moon each day, video content that I do not share here on YouTube that you gain access to through my Patreon. On the middle tier, we have a monthly meeting that happens a little bit after the new moon, around the time of the first crescent light of each lunar cycle, where we get together and talk about the astrology and any questions that people have about their life, their charts, about the astrology that's going on. And on the oak tier, the highest tier I have, we have a monthly class. And since the beginning of 2023, these classes have been focused on the fixed stars. And each month there is a different class about a fixed star and the meaning of that fixed star by Paran, by conjunction, the mythology of that fixed star, the magical tradition related to that fixed star, if there is a magical tradition. And so all of that is available on my Patreon. So please check that out. Otherwise, if you have not already liked and subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do, as it really does help me out. Well, that's it for now. I hope you receive powerful insights with this incredibly potent full moon in Aquarius.